let the uprising begin.
There are only two genders, and one of them is right here. It's the box that rocks. This is the Angela Box Show.
Well, the plot is thickening on this Somali fraud scandal that is just, exploding everywhere on X and online. But weirdly enough, the media doesn't seem to want to touch this with a 10-foot pole. I wonder why. Let's discuss it today on the Angela Box Show.
Hello, my name is Angela Box. Show your fucking money.
Okay, before we jump into all the latest stuff, and I just have to say, Nick Shirley, you magnificent bastard. You magnificent bastard. Nick Shirley is a 25-year-old YouTuber, okay, who with this gentleman, I think his name is Dave. I don't know if Nick gives his name or not, but evidently this long-time Minnesota resident has been, screaming about this fraud that is being done by the Somalis that have been infiltrating the United States for quite some time, and no one was listening to him. Until finally this young, intrepid reporter, Nick Shirley, who's, again, just a YouTuber, and I say this tongue-in-cheek because he's doing the work of 100 journalists. He basically went around with this guy and was going through every single one of these daycare centers, finding out that there are no children at these daycare centers, and look how much money they are all receiving. Millions and millions and millions of dollars. In fact, in the first installment of his long form video, it was 42 minutes long, they uncovered about $110 million in fraud. And crickets from the media. From the media that people want to actually act like matters anymore, and they don't, because people like Nick Shirley are showing them how it's done. Anyway, latest is that not only are there daycare centers that are being funded to the tune of millions and millions of taxpayer dollars that don't have any kids, along with autism centers. And isn't it funny how, we know that autism has spiked just dramatically in the last few decades. And I don't know what that could possibly be from, but autism is not only spiked, but it's also being monetized for fraud. So in Minnesota as well, there are fraudulent cases of autism that are being funded, autism centers that are being funded with no kids there. All you can see as you open up the doors is a bunch of, women clad in burqas and hijabs and Somali men going, get the hell off our property, all that good stuff. But the latest that has come out, I'm going to drop the video here, is this gentleman who is working with Nick Shirley basically said it's not just daycare centers. It's not just that. It's also these transportation companies that are saying that we're giving rides to people, indigent people, people who can't make it to whatever. Also full of fraud. Roll that clip.
And to make this happen, I met up with a man who's been doing his own investigation for years now, as he has seen the fraud firsthand. His name is David. Let's get into this and be prepared to be shocked. How deep is this fraud here inside of Minnesota?
It is far worse than anybody can imagine. You heard it's 7 to 10 billion and maybe more, and now the numbers have been revised and put out there publicly that they think it's more like 8 billion. How I got involved is that where my office is here in Minneapolis, I'm sort of in the heart of all of this fraud, and I would see these childcare centers. I said, well, there aren't any kids there. It's the middle of the day, and all I see are a couple of guys standing out front smoking. And then I'd go by another daycare and I'd see the same thing. I said, well, where do these kids play? And so I started to go online and look, and I said, this place is licensed for 80 children. They had 0 children. Every time I went by there, they never had a single child there. Then I started to see all these transportation companies going around, and it was always a Somali driver. And I said, well, that's great. They're out there transportation, contributing, but they never had a passenger, never, ever once. And I said, well, what is all this transportation? What are they doing? So then I found out that in Minnesota, they have something called non-emergency medical transportation. So this is going to the dentist's office, therapy, whatever it might be. And I said, well, how many of these companies are there? And the research came back that there are 1,020 of them, and more than 800 of them are Somali-owned. Nobody from the state of Minnesota ever cross-checks to see if any rides were ever actually provided. All they did was write the check.
And in case you're wondering just how bad it's gotten in Little Mogadishu, aka Minnesota, look at this video of a brawl, a multiple pocketed brawls plural, that broke out. And I don't know if this is the Mall of America or whatever, but like people that live in Minnesota are like, you can't even go to the Mall of America anymore. It is literally Little Mogadishu. Roll the clip.
Everybody back! No! Don't know. Starting.
I'm gonna say something very unkind. 3, 2, 1. Clutch. Get ready to clutch your pearls. These people look like a bunch of scattering cockroaches, okay? And now that we know the level of fraud that we're dealing with in the Somali American community, I'm sorry, but every single one of these people need to be rounded up and shipped back to Somalia. And there's another interesting little wrinkle that has gone on kind of under the radar too. And when I was looking on X today for stuff about this, something that was trending was the term Somaliland. And initially I just thought, oh, Somaliland is basically like, this is Minnesota at this point. No, evidently there is an offshoot of Somalia called Somaliland, which is, for lack of a better term, the Taiwan to China, essentially, kind of trying to push back against the Islamist takeover of Somalia. The Somalia that has been ruled by pirates for these many centuries.
I have an entire pirate crew willing to do anything for me.
All right, men, remember, do not hit the white ones.
Me and my crew are gonna go on pirating forever.
Claire.
Fuck.
And evidently today, Israel acknowledged the existence of Somaliland, which of course has sent every leftist, head gone on fire over this. You know, the same people that are trying to make Palestine the hotbed of crazy, the hotbed of 7th century cave dwellers into its own permanent state. They don't have anything to say about this, of course. They're like, no, we don't like actual freedom fighters. We like literal terrorists. Anyway, I digress. But something else I was looking into when it comes to this outrageous fraud that absolutely goes up to Tim Walz, absolutely touches on Omar. And y'all, I said this in another video. I don't know if it's been put out yet, but it bears repeating. Ilhan Omar, once this heifer is charged with immigration fraud, once this heifer is charged with receiving all of this taxpayer money, because never forget that this heifer was $65,000 in debt in 2020. And miraculously, she's worth like $20 million today. How did her and her white savior of a husband get so rich? Inquiring minds would like to know. It's going down, okay? It's going down fast and furious. And Donald Trump put out a truth over the weekend. And a lot of us have been trying to give Pam Bondi the benefit of the doubt, be like, okay, there's a reason that X, Y, and Z has not happened. Well, Donald Trump over the weekend is like, he put his marker out and he was like, some shit needs to start happening here. We need to start getting some major arrests here. If we're talking about the Trump-Russia collusion hoax or the crap that, take your pick, the impeachment hoax number 1, impeachment hoax number 2, the 2020 election, the origins of COVID, and now this Minnesota fraud scandal. And there's even more fraud evidently going on in the state of California, which no one is surprised over, because Gavin Newsom's like, we're gonna get rid of homelessness, and homelessness is gonna be a thing of the past, and they've received billions and billions of dollars, and there's literally no record of like $2.3 billion that was earmarked to go into these groups. Y'all, the amount of money that has been stolen from the American people should be the one thing that unites Democrats and Republicans. But because Democrats, by and large, there's the lies of commission I talk about that the media is doing, and the lies of omission that the media is doing. And the fact that the media is not talking about this, or if they are talking about it, they're trying to frame it as a race issue. And of course, the Republicans just trying to score political points on the backs of immigrants. This should unite Democrats and Republicans. And this needs to be a PSA that the Trump administration, whatever they need to do, if the Republican National Committee wants to put out ads, like whoever, start blanketing the airwaves with, here's what's going on in the state of Minnesota. Here's what's going on in the state of Washington. Here's what's going on in the state of Ohio with all of these Somalis that have been trucked into the United States of America in order to hasten the Great Replacement theory. Here's what's going on in California with the billions of dollars that are supposed to go to the homeless. This is what you need to understand that the Democrats have done in this country, okay? This is what they've done. This is what they continue to do. Now, something else I found very interesting. A nice little rabbit hole you can go down. Remember a few months ago when two Minnesota lawmakers one was murdered and one was attempted murder. Melissa Hortman was the Democrat lady who was murdered. Let's roll the clip of Melissa Hortman basically crying on television, explaining why she voted against taxpayer-funded benefits for illegal aliens, aka Somalis. It's almost like she knew. Roll that clip.
I know that people will be hurt by that vote, and we worked very hard to try to get a budget deal that wouldn't include that provision.
DFL Speaker Emerita Melissa Hortman emotional following the House's adjournment from a special session Monday. Hortman was the lone DFL lawmaker to cast a vote to cut Minnesota Care access for undocumented immigrants. It's a move she made with a heavy heart.
I did what leaders do. I stepped up and I got the job done for the people of Minnesota.
The bill was deeply unpopular with members of the DFL caucus. Members have repeatedly expressed frustration that the bill was part of a compromise, one that would ensure the necessary GOP votes to pass the rest of the state budget.
We are tremendously disappointed and gut-wrenched at this decision, at this compromise that compromises our communities that are most vulnerable.
Hortman knows she let down her own caucus members with the vote.
They're right to be mad at me. I think some of them are pretty angry. I think that their job was to make folks who voted for that bill feel like crap, and I think that they succeeded.
And then a couple weeks later, or not even a couple weeks later, she and her husband were murdered in cold blood by some guy named Vance Bolter, who was a Tim Walz appointee, who had a No Kings poster in his car, and who basically came out with a hot take saying, hey, the reason I did this is because Tim Walz told me to do it. And the reason Tim Walz told me to do it was because she voted against illegal alien benefits. And everyone's like, oh, come on, man. Like, this is effing crazy. Is it? Is it crazy? I would suspect that the FBI has made a beeline to Vance Bolter's jail cell to be like, hey, what else can you tell us about this? And let's finally roll the clip of Tim Walz being asked, and he looks like, man, listen, here's the thing about Tim Walz, Governor Jazz Hands, okay? He is not cut out for this. Like, he is no Patrick Bateman, a.k.a. Gavin Newsom, okay? Gavin Newsom is cool as a cucumber. He's gonna shuck and jive and dance his way through all of this until he can't defend anything because it's gonna be in black and white, the fraud. But Tim Walz he's not savvy, okay? He's just like, he's a useful idiot in the sense that he's just a conduit for stupid ass ideas. But he also probably got rich doing this. And he probably also has increased his net worth a lot by looking the other way on the fraud and collecting the fraud. So here's Tim Walz getting confronted about all this. And deer in the headlights. Roll that clip.
Governor Walz, what can you say about the latest on the Somali fraud that happened under your watch, sir?
Governor, have you been able to apologize yet to the people of Minnesota for allowing this Somali fraud to continue under your watch?
Of the people of Minnesota.
Is it time to apologize? How about the whistleblowers
That you have allegedly retaliated against. Would you like to respond to the whistleblowers?
And right now, our neighbors are being demonized. Our neighbors are being terrorized. Our neighbors are being picked up off the streets. The antidote to that is positive actions to improve lives that go against what they're trying to do. So instead of demonizing our Somali community, we're going to do more to welcome more in and welcome people there. Instead of cutting programs, we're going to enhance them.
And then, at the end of that clip, you had Tim Walz out there at some, fancy, $5,000 a plate dinner, some fundraiser for some Democrats or whatever. And he's like, oh, this is just terrible. What Trump is doing to our Somali neighbors. These are our neighbors and our friends. I mean, I know that we just trucked in an entire third world country into one of the coldest states in America and basically said to the citizens of said state, suck it. These are your new neighbors and your new friends. But don't look at anything that we're doing. Well, guess what, Governor Jazz Hands? My guess is you're going to be indicted soon. And so is Ilhan Omar. And so are all the other Somali fraudsters that have bilked the American taxpayer out of billions of dollars. And if anyone wants to think it's just a handful, I don't think so. I cannot wait. And here's what I think needs to happen. And I assure you, I'm assuming if you're watching, you also agree. We need to see mass deportations of these Somali immigrants. And if these Somali immigrants lied on their application forms in any way, shape, or form, which you damn sure know that they did, get rid of all of them. Start the mass deportations. When the money kicks in and you're able to get those ICE agents hired, which obviously they are in the process of being hired, and when fiscal 2026, when that money really starts flowing, you're going to see the deportations really start, and you're going to see the meltdowns get even worse. But this is what has to happen. This is what has to happen. That beginning video that I showed you of the cockroaches scurrying in the mall. I mean, look at the covered head to toe in beekeeper outfits. Their culture is not compatible with our culture. So we need to make sure that we are deporting the people whose culture is actually effing terrible. Okay? Their culture sucks. They need to go back to Somalia and fix Somalia. I don't want to hear your tears anymore, because this fraud goes deep and wide, and it is hitting a lot of branches on that tree as it hits the ground. And my question is, who's going to be the first one to flip? Who is it going to be? Because Vance Walter's out there saying, hey, Tim Walz told me to kill Melissa Hortman. And does that sound actually that crazy now? I don't think so. So this is a story that is going to get more and more juicy as time goes on. And I guess you flip open a rock, all the cockroaches start scurrying, and that is what we're going to start to see. All right, that's where we're going to leave today's video. Please let me know what you think down below. Like, subscribe, comment, do all the things. And I will see you in the next video. I will be done. Peace.